In today's video, we're going to be having a look at the brand new Justice League Action Blue Beetle figure. The Justice League action figures are generally small to start off with, so it should be probably no surprise that Blue Beetle is at a very small 4.5 inches in height. He gets himself a couple of accessories, one of which being a Blue Beetle backpack that has the little legs on either side. And we can go ahead and take the backpack, and it pegs actually just into the very back of his torso, very, very easily. And I guess it doesn't really matter which way you face it. You could have it facing this way or the other way, so either way. And it looks like that from the front, which actually just looks like his costume anyways. And then he gets a couple of these kind of somewhat translucent, it's a very dark translucent blue plastic, like these little additional legs. And you can go ahead and fit them into the top here. And they just kind of force snap. I can show you what I'm talking about here. The ball joint is a little bit larger than the socket, so as you can see it just kind of snaps in place and stays in place. And you get something that kind of looks like the top mandibles, like top claw areas of the beetle. Or what you can also do too is you can spin it around too, which hides it a little bit more as well. And these, you can move them just a little bit of wiggle if you want to bring them a little further out, bring them a little further closer. So he does come with the backpack. What you can also do too with these is you can just detach them, pop them out, and you can also hold them in his hand as well. It's to note as well that they don't sit the greatest in his hand. His hands are very large, so these end up sitting a little on the loose side. I think for display purposes, I probably would just end up clipping them into the top and calling it a day. Now these as well, the whole gimmick with the Justice League action figures is the fact that the accessories, in this case the backpack of Blue Beetle, can be attached to other things like weapons and other things like that. You know, a little bit of mileage for it. I mean, in all honesty, I'm more actually excited for the figures than I am for this. Although in this instance, Blue Beetle has something like this on his back anyways, so maybe I would just leave these off now that I think about it and just kind of have it like this. Kind of looks a little bit like a face as well. As for the figure itself, I have to say he does have a tough time standing, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact he's got very, very small feet. And his feet seem like they're on a strange sculpted angle. I have to find myself kind of bringing the legs forward so he doesn't topple over. But if you have the legs kind of perfectly straight, you can see that it doesn't seem to sit perfectly flat. It sits slightly on an angle. This has some serious problems then when it comes to getting him to stand. You can get him to stand, before you know it, he topples back over. Coloring on him is pretty good. I mean, between the blues and the blacks, he's got some out panel lining here on the arms, which looks decent enough. Generally, paint is pretty clean. I don't have any real nitpicks. Yeah, down below, I mean, we could say that the blue, the paint is not on, for the black, is not completely painted in there. It's slightly off, but it's very, very small. Unfortunately, though, and I didn't realize this at the time that I picked this figure up, I think there was only 2 of them on the shelf, and I found this at Walmart. And there's some serious paint problems. I've got some yellow here schmutzed all over the mask, the lower mask of Blue Beetle. It's got a little bit on the top there as well. I could easily remedy that with a little bit of like a black Sharpie. I could just kind of go in there and kind of color it in. The coloring, speaking of the black and a Sharpie probably would stand out a little bit because he does have more of a matte black than he does a shiny black. I do dig the blue. I have to admit the blue looks good on him. And I do like the fact as well that these are superposable figures. It's kind of a far cry from what we were getting before with the Justice League Unlimited figures, though the Justice League action figures very much feel like new Justice League figures. And I hope they continue to release these. Posability on this guy. His head is on a ball joint. One problem I have with the ball joint, though, is the head rotates on the ball joint, but as you can see, it rotates on an angle. The way that the head is plugged in, you can't really tilt the head any further back. It doesn't really bother me so much when his head's rotated this way, because you don't normally rotate the figure's head that way anyways. But you can see, it doesn't tilt that much any further back than really what you're seeing right here. He always kind of seems to have a slight angle to him as well. It's funny that this particular figure has so many things like that. Slightly angled feet, slightly angled neck, the way that the head's plugged into the socket. That really makes the figure just kind of feel like he's just like kind of swaying forward in the wind. By the way, his posability, let's look at the rest of it. His head, ball joint. Hinged universal joints on the shoulders, so those rotate out. And you can also rotate them all the way around. It's a little bit of a stiffer joint. There we go, there we go. Also has the same for the elbow with the forearm. Nothing in the hand. Very, very sharp claw-like hands also to note as well. Waist swivel. Then he's also got splits on the legs. If you wanted to do that with Blue Beetle, you can certainly do that. I don't know if he would like that all that much, but you could do that with the figure. Forward and back motion on the legs, bend at the knee. The lower leg also rotates. And for good measure, they also threw in some peg holes on the undersides of his feet. Mind you, those are incredibly small peg holes. I really can't think of a peg hole stand that would actually fit those holes. Now, how it relates to the figure that I've picked up here, I've got a little bit of a QC issue, a little bit of that yellow paint, unfortunately, that's made its way onto his mask. I could probably just kind of fix that up with a bit of a marker. But relating to the overall way that the figure was constructed, he's got really, really small feet. They're also on an angle, and incorporating the backpack, which as you see currently is on the back of the figure, he is extremely back heavy and a lot of times will topple over. In fact, this final looks in this review has been done about 6 times because the figure has toppled over by the sheer weight of the backpack and the fact that his feet are very small and slightly angled. He's about the only Justice League action figure that I've had this problem with. All the other Justice League action figures have stood perfectly fine. They give you a small peg hole on the undersides of his feet, but they don't give you really a display stand to help assist with that. So shy of just trying to find a display stand to attach his little tiny feet to, you might have some problems with Blue Beetle here toppling over. That aside, I think it's a decent looking figure. He's got some nice design choices to him, and I like the blue accents that he's got to the otherwise black costume. So, good figure, just has a problem standing. That's about all I would really say. Today, though, we're having a look at the Justice League action. This was the brand new Blue Beetle figure. If you guys haven't had a chance yet to subscribe to this channel, make sure you hit that little subscribe button down below. Of course, more videos will be coming your way soon. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.